going forward, because you know about housing costs. They're going through the roof, especially on the coasts. We have churches that are calling pastors or calling teachers, and they really have a hard time even finding housing that they can afford. So, not a big, long commercial, but we're in the business, if you will, of resourcing the church for ministry. And along the way, people have just said, here's a bequest, or here's, you have my account. It's on, we're getting some interest off that, but you've been loaning it out. When I die, you just keep it. So the reason that I have a title like Senior Development Officer is that we're responding to investors who want to talk about charitable giving. And the neat thing about what we do is your churches are blessed. Because when we sit down with a person, anytime you get into planned giving with people, you have to hear what's on their heart. And they say, well, I want to leave a request to my church. That's great. Sometimes they leave it to LCEF, but most times it's going to other ministries of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. So I and my counterpart, Diana Rosh, are totally focused on helping people with estate planning and planned giving on a very simple basis, only with our investors and things like that. Scott Roberts is the name on this slide. He is the Paul Reeves. Do you know that name?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Paul retired. Scott now is covering this area of the country for LCEF. He is your contact for investments and things like that. And I'll just give you one commercial. And the QR code doesn't show up here, but the screen is off. We're offering an 18-month 5% note right now. But online, if you go to lcef.org, you can find all the investments and all that kind of thing. And you can see me after the presentation if you want to learn more about that. So loans happen through investments, and on our website you can get all the information you need. What we're going to do today, in the time we have, we're going to talk about the blessings we have. And what we do in terms of being a good steward, like Pastor's sermon this morning, we are managers of everything that God has given us. And what is the best way to do that? And we're going to find out why is this type of planning biblical, and also cover some basic concepts of estate planning and wills. And then how does this pertain to you here at Beautiful Savior, or whatever church you are a member of? I think we can all agree. If we think of all the ways we've been blessed, we're blessed beyond measure. You grew up in a family, you might have a family, you have had a job during your lifetime, a way to earn money, you have a home, education. I think a lot of people, when I talk to them, they want to include their alma mater in part of their estate plan as a gift, or they're giving to them now. And many of us are tithing or giving to our churches. We have our church family to be thankful for. Hopefully we've got some savings. We have a retirement going on. And of course we have a lot of recreation, and we're enjoying life to the abundance. And Scott just walked in. Scott, say hi.
Hi everybody. How are you?
Have you met any of these people yet?
I have, outside of Pastor Myers, no.
Okay. Well, I just talked about you. I don't know if you heard.
Perfect. You did a great commercial.
All right. So that's your new Paul Reeves.
You can't replace Paul.
Can't replace Paul. I'm sure you're a nice person. Which means
I didn't wear my suit, so I'm not going to be called the senator.
Yeah. So, in the Bible, throughout the Scripture, stewardship is talked about a lot. And if you were to remove all of Jesus' comments about money, we would reduce his teachings by more than a third. 16 of the 38 parables of Jesus reference money. And that's why it's so important for us to take care of everything that we've been given. Now, we've all heard about the parable of the rich fool, and I'm not trying to, this is a guy who had tons of stuff, right? I mean, we have stuff, right, Joni? Well, this is my wife, Joni, by the way. She's been with me just over 48 years as of the 9th of October. So, we're trying to downsize. We have made plans to move into a retirement center or a living community, and that little apartment is going to hold 4 bedrooms worth of stuff. And we all have stuff. And this guy built bigger barns just to keep all his stuff. And little did he know that his tea time was tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So the point of this slide is not to frighten us into thinking God's going to take us home and we're not going to be prepared. The purpose of it is worldly wisdom thinks accumulate, 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 and pass it on to family. And I'll show you some numbers later on that really maybe apply to one or three of us, but probably don't. The world now and our economy is set up so much that we don't have to worry about estate taxes anymore. When I started doing this, the exemption was $600,000. Beyond $600,000, you would pay tax on anything else you left to your family. So now it's in the millions, multi-millions. So, and if you are that person, Pastor would like to see you.
We still have a mortgage.
So the reality of all we have, the reality is there's only 3 places that our stuff can go. To family and friends, to the government, or to charities. Those are the 3. And I love the fact that you have a whiteboard here. You're not all going to see this, but when I met with people, we would be baking pies. And that's everything we have. And all we would talk about is, what are the pieces of the pie? You got maybe a child or 2. You have the government, and you have charity. So you make a pie, and you cut the pie up in a bunch of pieces, and you say, okay, how much are we going to give to those 3 entities? I don't think the tax one ever won. But once you have taken care of the most important things, and that's you and your spouse, or if you're not married, just you, to make sure that you have enough money to live on the rest of your life. Then you want to take care of your family. You need to take care of the family that you have, or the heirs that you have, and loved ones. And then once that's done appropriately, then you can ask yourself, what else does God want me to do with this? So I like to think of wills as the thing we talk about at death. That's your last will and testament. An estate plan begins now, while you're living. And it can be a fun experience of enjoying going through things, seeing what you have, what are the effects of leaving this part of my estate to whomever, and what is the timing of that. Revocable living trust is something that sometimes comes into handy, and you all can have this planning your legacy workbook. I've got plenty of these for everybody to take with you today, but it briefly goes through all the aspects of an estate plan, and briefly touches on what a living trust does. And basically, you hear about the word probate. Probated assets are assets that are your possession, and they are accounted for in your will. You divide those up. And that needs to be done through a probate process. The probate process can take anywhere from around 6 months, a year, to 2 years, maybe longer. But the use of a trust, not all people really need a revocable living trust, but that is an entity that you set aside while you're living. You put assets in there, and then it's an expedient way to distribute those assets that passes outside of probate and can get property distributed a lot quicker than using the probate process. And it's all about the impact to your family and ministry. So the common goals of most estate plans, I don't know how many of you have minor children yet, Yes. Your will or your estate plan should talk about guardianship for minor children should you and your spouse or whatever pass away. Inheritance for family. You talked about the witnessing of your faith. Here's another place where you can do that. The Christian preamble to your will. It's a really good way to, when the family, the close-knit family is meeting in the room, they're going over your will, and they're reading this to the people in your family. You get a chance then to talk about your faith in Christ and why you have made decisions that you have, and that is one last witness of your faith. And then you can also remember your ministries, your congregation, other ministries that you support. Other common goals: you want to avoid paying unnecessary taxes, and this couldn't happen during your lifetime. This is just at death. Succession plan for a business, perhaps. You need to select a person that will be executor of your estate, power of attorney for finances, and power of attorney for health care. And the big thing is to take all those decisions out of the picture that will cause family arguments later on. That's why it's good to have the meeting also while you're living with your family and talk about these things. Going back to the minor children, if you do have children and grandchildren that are minors, perhaps, that might be something to talk about with them. Do you have a will? Do you have a guardianship lined up for your minor children? And I should say this: if you have questions, jot them down. You can follow along on your pages if you like. Keep your questions write them down, and I'll try to answer them at the end. So let's talk about the meat and potatoes, really, of today. When we talk about impact of family and ministry, I like to talk about estate taxes, income taxes, what's enough or too much, when and what to give to family, and then finally some gifting opportunities. Here's the funny, I think it's kind of, it's here for a reason today. When you pass away and you have a spouse, there is unlimited marital deduction. So you have no estate taxes flowing to a spouse, no matter what size of estate you have, 50 million, 100 million. The federal exemption now is up to 3.6 million per individual. For a joint, it's 27.2 million. So I'm not going to pay federal income tax.
Estate.
Or estate tax. Yeah, I'm not going to pay estate tax. Unless, no, I don't play the lottery. These numbers are going to go down a little bit in 2025 because the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act instituted the tax brackets we're in right now. The highest tax rate is 37%. At the end of 2025, it reverts back to what it was in 2017. Anybody remember what the exemption rate was in 2017? It was 5 million, and then 10 million for a couple. But that's been adjusted for inflation, so it's only going to go down to 7 million and about 14 million. Now, why do I say this? The world today, again, has been, I view it as a cultural thing where charities don't even have to impact your tax planning anymore. They're saying you can leave as much money to your kids and your heirs as you want and not have to worry about paying taxes. And when I talk to families, avoiding taxes is not the number one thing that they want to do. They want to make sure their family's taken care of, and they want to remember the charities that they love. The ones that include charity, that's the most important thing. They want to see that money going to impact the lives of others who need it. The income taxes. I talk about this, and I'm going to steal a little bit of thunder from Mark maybe, but there are 7 tax brackets, and the highest one is 37%. And I can't remember, Mark, what is that level of income that causes that tax bracket to kick in at 37%?
When you're single again, and you have, they do, like case when I go, they lost their husband,
Okay.
they were paying higher taxes, now they just get eradicated more.
Yeah, right. So annual incomes of, 600,000, 700,000, but even at the 24% level, 191,000 for a single, and 380, 22%. But the lowest tax bracket is 10 and 12. Most of the time, we try to work on everything in the 12% tax bracket. If you inherit a large IRA, and IRAs today are not unreasonable to be over $1 million, that has to spend out in 10 years now. Used to be you could stretch those IRAs out to your family and your grandchildren. But now that IRA has to come out in 10 years. So imagine what an extra $100,000 a year of income is going to do for your children's income status, your tax bracket. That's just a little bit of a thing to consider if you leave IRA money to your family. The standard deduction in every year now is about $14,600. And why do I talk about the standard deduction? Again, since the standard deduction has gone so high, charitable giving has gone down across the nation by $20 billion because they don't see the benefit. I can't deduct it anyway, so why give it? Unless you go over that threshold. So that's why I'm to put two things out here: bundling charitable deductions and considering donor advised funds. These are popular things that are being done right now. Some people have thought, okay, I can't take advantage of that 14,600 or that 29,000, but if I give every other year, okay, I'm telling you, Pastor, you're not going to get my gift in December. I'm going to wait till January next year, and then I'm going to give twice next year. I'm going to give my double amount, and that might help me be able to deduct. I might exceed those standard deduction levels. So people are trying sometimes to bundle their charitable giving in every other year, so that in the years that they don't give a lot, they can use the standard deduction. And when they give more than the standard deduction, then they can itemize on Schedule A. It's just a strategy that some people are using. Another thing is donor advised funds. Does anyone here know what a donor advised fund is? Have you heard of that? Many institutions and the LCMS Foundation actually does offer donor advised funds. For example, if I have significant assets and I want to start giving now while I'm living, I could take, and it relates to the standard deduction. For example, maybe we have $100,000 in stocks that I really would like to make use of, but I'm not going to be giving that away in a little bit every year and maybe not meeting that standard deduction. I can take that $100,000, put it into a donor advised fund, and receive a charitable deduction for the full $100,000 of stock. That then sits in the donor advised funds, and then I grant it out to the charities as I desire. I can describe that a little later, and maybe we can work on the chalkboard if you have more questions on it. But if you have questions about it, write it down. We can talk about it later. But it's the idea of granting the money, or giving the money now and getting a deduction, even though it's not going to the charities yet, but then granting it later. And studies have shown that, and this is probably not that important to you, but unlike some people have set up their own charitable foundations, very wealthy families have their own charitable foundation, they put millions of dollars in the foundation, and then they have to dole out at least 5% every year to charities. Donor advised funds don't have any rules about how much they can dole out, but the reality is that an average of 20% of these funds get donated every year. An example would be this. If Joni and I set up a donor advised fund, say that we started it with $100,000. We get a $100,000 deduction for this year's taxes. Next year, we think, well, I'd like to give $5,000 to our church. I would like to give $5,000 to our school. You can just start doling that money out as you desire from that fund. Meanwhile, that fund is being invested according to your risk tolerance, and it could be earning more money, but it doesn't grow taxable income, it grows tax-free. So you can have it like your own foundation, if you will. You can set up your donor advised fund and then decide every year how many gifts you're going to give to what charities that you love. Just an idea. Okay, how much, what, and when? This goes back to that, unlimited, or that federal estate tax exemption of, how many millions of dollars. If you are in a position where, and some families are, where they want to spend down their estate, they want to give their children money while they're living. Joni and I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, and that's 6 of them. We're 2 of us. We each could give every one of those people $18,000 a year. And they would not pay any taxes on that. They would not pay any gift tax on that. And we could spend through our estate really fast. $18,000 per person, that's times 6. We could do that twice. But all I'm saying is, if you want to start giving to your children while you're living, you really don't even have to worry about that $18,000. Say that something came up and you thought, I want to give our children a house. And that house costs $300,000. You can still do that, and you can fill out a form that says, okay, instead of, let's say that $18,000 was already given out, and you gave an extra $300,000 this year, that just reduces the amount of that $14 million that you are not able to donate, or that you're able to give to your family tax-free at death. You just fill out a form and says they've already gotten $300,000, just reduce that number by $300,000 later on. They still don't have to pay taxes on it. You can, file that form, it's Form 709 with the IRS in the year that you give that to them. And you can give as much as you want away. And once you exceed that that federal exemption, but watch out, it's already down to $7 million in 2026. If you exceed that. But still, the idea is if you exceed $18,000 in any one year, they don't have to pay gift tax on it if you file 709 with it. Appreciated assets. And this is another thing, we think about giving while living. If we give, let's use $100,000 of stock. Maybe we wanted to give, $50,000 of stock to our kids. And we bought that stock when it was only worth $10,000. They would have to, if I were to sell that stock, I would pay capital gains on $40,000. You with me so far? The capital gains is the growth of your appreciated asset. If you pass that on to somebody while you're living, they retain that same cost basis. So if they were to sell it, they would have to pay the capital gain. If you pass on inherited appreciated assets, there's a step up in basis, which means if I wait till the death, if you will, if I have a lot of stock, that's probably something you want to pass on to your loved ones at death. Because when you inherit appreciated assets, you get the step up in basis. So that $50,000, when it passes to an heir, now has a cost basis of $50,000. So that if they want to sell it, there's no capital gain. So you want to talk about that later, ask me, specific questions. It sounds kind of complicated maybe, but just the concept of step up in basis applies to any appreciated asset. It could be a farm, it could be land, it could be stock. So if you're thinking about giving property away to family or children, realize that the cost basis goes along with it. And if they were to sell it, they have to pass or pay the capital gains. But that does present gifting opportunity. What would you think, wouldn't it be nice if you could pass along appreciated property to your loved ones and not pay any capital gains? So this is where the planned giving work comes in. I'm going to talk about that later when I talk about a charitable remainder trust. Keep it simple, stupid, right? The KISS method. Many estates are not complicated at all. Our estate is not complicated at all. We don't have business interests. We don't have a lot of properties all over the country. Our assets are mostly IRAs, savings accounts, our home, and a lot of things like the IRA and the savings accounts, that's all beneficiary properties. I say, and that's why I have POD on here, the pay on death. If you have that on your accounts, that passes outside of probate, it goes to them right away. You can keep things really simple, unless you have like business ownerships or things like that that get kind of tricky, if you will, and how to pass them on to loved ones. A bequest. What is a bequest? It's just, saying either in your will, you're saying, okay, I want to leave 10% of the residue of my estate to my church, because I want to build up the endowment at church. So that would be an opportunity for you to just say 10% of the residue. But the key there is, what if you had on your will, you're saying 10%, but then all of your beneficiary assets, like your savings accounts and your IRA or whatever, didn't match that. That's where you have to watch out. You have to make sure that whatever you intend to do in your will applies to all of the assets that you have. So if you're going to leave 10% to the church or any ministry at all, you should reflect that in all the assets you have, like the beneficiary form on your savings accounts, the beneficiary, the pay on death of your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, for example, and stealing Mark's thunder. IRA, that's the best place to leave money to the church.
Let me just, since you're on the topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
He and I were at a conference in San Diego 3 weeks ago. I don't know if you saw this guy's slide, but 62% of estate assets do not pass under the will. They do not pass under the living trust. They pass beneficiary designation. So I've been doing this stuff 25 years in estate planning, and I just see it all the time where people say, yeah, my will says this, but it's contradicted by the beneficiary designations. The beneficiary designation always trumps the will.
Always is.
Yeah, so if you have a life insurance policy and it says it goes to Jen and Bobby, and your will says it's to go to the church, guess who wins? Jen and Bobby, because the beneficiary designation is for them. It always trumps the will. The life insurance company doesn't even care what your will says if the beneficiary designation says something else.
That's with life insurance and.
Anything with a beneficiary designation. In Mississippi, you can even make your house have a beneficiary designation. Not all states can do that, but Tennessee cannot do that, but Mississippi can. So that's why whenever you set up an account anymore, post 9/11, the people will just beat you up to try to put a beneficiary designation on there. Judy, I need a name. I need a name. You can't, it used to be, oh, I'll just leave it blank and let it fall under my will. They'll twist your arm to get you to put names of your loved ones in everyone. So I don't want to say it makes the will irrelevant, but insofar as you've made beneficiary designations, then we'll talk more about that in IRAs.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Right. Yeah, thanks.
Take that in mind.
We already talked a little bit about donor advised funds. The charitable remainder trust, I just want to talk a little bit about how that could work. Say that you own some land and it's valued at $300,000, and if you want to give that to your children, if you were to just give it outright, again, the cost basis would stay the same. And if they sold it, they'd have to pay capital gains on it. Where a charitable remainder trust comes in handy is at the point of life, really with any appreciated asset. If there is an event in your life that says, I need to sell this, whether it's another property or if it's a stock, and you want to convert stock to income maybe in your retirement, the way to do it through a charitable remainder trust is you donate. It's called a charitable trust. That means it's an entity that can receive a tax deduction, or provide you a tax deduction. You can put that asset into the charitable remainder trust, and then it will start to pay out interest to whomever you want. You could have it pay out to yourself for retirement income. You could have it paid to children. You could have it paid to any individual, really. And then, so you get a charitable deduction for putting it in there, not the full, but it's based on a calculation on the life of the trust. Then, at the end of at the term of the trust, when the income is not needed anymore, it goes to the charities that you name in the trust. So the people that are getting the income, if you have it pay out like for 20 years at 5%, on paper it looks like if I'm donating $300,000 into this trust, I'm going to pay out 25% of that income. That's $6,000 a year. No, $15,000 a year. Yeah, $15,000 a year for 20 years. That's that full amount of $300,000. Again, it's a math problem we could do on paper. But
Don't forget to mention bypass capital gains tax.
oh yeah, and bypass capital gains tax, because the trust then will sell the asset, capital gains tax free, and then start dishing out the money out the income from the trust. There are illustrations that show that, and I can provide you with illustration upon illustration, and so can Mark, to show how these plans work. But that a face-to-face meeting is the best way to talk about those things. Similarly, with a charitable gift annuity, they're becoming more popular with the fluctuation of the stock market. Charitable gift annuities offer you a life income based on your age at fairly attractive rates. And you'll see later I have brochures on all this stuff. But when you donate money to a charitable gift annuity, again, you get a partial tax deduction for the gift. Then you start receiving income from that charitable gift annuity. A good portion of it is tax-free income, return of principal to you. So, for example, a 90-year-old I know can get 10.1% rate of return. And the rates are in this brochure here. '80-year-old, 8.1% rate of return. So it's not making 8.1% on your money, but it is a combination of a charitable gift eventually, and then income for you during your lifetime. If you want to talk about a gift annuity, let me know. And then the residual, or whatever's left in the gift annuity at your death, then goes to the charity that you name. So your church, for example. Also life insurance. If you have a life insurance policy that's maybe not going to be needed, those make excellent gifting opportunities. You can deduct the cash value as a direct gift to the charity, and the charity then, when you pass away, gets the full face value of that life insurance policy. How does it apply to you here at Beautiful Savior? Again, stewardship is for all generations of life. Many congregations I see now are in desperate need of endowments or funds to have available when there's a leaky roof or capital improvements need to be made, things like that.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning goes out. So I'm going to talk to you about just a concept of perpetuating your annual giving. One of the ways, I'll just use a figure of $25,000. If you left a $25,000 endowment, if you will, or a bequest to your church or any entity and said, put this in an endowment, and then we got the earnings every year. Then beyond that time, like say 4%, that $1,000 a year will continually pay back to that church over the course of forever. As long as the endowment is intact, the earnings of that endowment will continue. So, I don't know, we could calculate what our annual giving is at our church, and say if we wanted to perpetuate that beyond our lifetime to make sure that the church can grow in the future, we would set aside X amount of dollars to replace our offerings every year, or a portion of them. Just a way to think about benefiting a charity that you love. Putting it into an endowment, which then will give income to the charity. Perpetuated forever.
Is that another thing that's gonna you have to have your lawyer and get it set up and everything?
No, it would just be on the part of the church or whoever receives that money to set up an endowment. And endowments can be managed at the LCMS Foundation, who we work closely with. Churches might already have an endowment fund, and you could name that fund as the recipient of your money. Or you can give those while living too. And again, Mark might talk about this. Gifts from an IRA, using the qualified charitable qualified
Charitable.
deduction, right, qualified charitable deduction. You'll learn all about that this afternoon. But it has to go into an endowment fund. And that can either be set up with your gift, or there might be an existing endowment to give it to. So important takeaways. I think it's always important to talk to God in prayer about these things. Work with an attorney, certified financial planner. When I work with people, I definitely want to work with their attorney to make sure that we're on the same page. And I can talk the language to the attorney to make sure that the attorney understands what the family wants to do. And financial planners too. And it's always important to review your will or estate plans to make sure everything is current. Make sure that the executors that you have named still want to do it. Those types of things. And always share plans with your family if possible. Have discussions about these things. And if you are leaving a bequest to an entity like charity or your church, have a discussion with them about that. And make sure that they understand what you want to do so that they can help you craft the language that gets it to them and have it do the right thing.
That we can do what you think you want us to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Probably don't need $40 million for choir roads.
No, right. Yeah. When I talk to organizations, I say, are you ready to receive a large gift? You know, for churches, this is important to have a council or a group that's already ready to receive a large bequest, because it can cause arguments about how to use that money, things like that. So, in conclusion, I have some resources for you. I have this wills guide. We have plenty, one for everybody. They'll be over here. There are these brochures. We have retirement asset giving, a couple of other brochures. And then also you can go to our website, and it's on the back of your handout that I have there. My name and contact information is there. And the website for the gift planning website of LCEF, the page looks like this. And you can't see it very well on the bottom there, or on the side, but you can click on any one of these. You can, the gift options, give later, give now, calculators. There's a gift, charitable gift annuity calculator on there. Christian preambles are in there. So a lot of stuff on there. You can just peruse that website, stay as long as you like, that kind of thing. Also have one more gift for you today. LCEF has under its umbrella Grace Place Wellness Ministries. Grace Place Wellness was specifically for pastors. John Eckrich, a Christian physician and founder of Grace Place Wellness. It's an organization that teaches wellness, life practices to encourage joy, vibrancy, and longevity in ministry professions. They have retreats that they've had over the years for pastors and teachers. As a board-certified internist and gastroenterologist for over 40 years, he saw pastors particularly in poor health, just because under so much stress and just not taking care of themselves. So he left the ministry, or he left the medical profession and started this ministry. This is his book, Resilient Aging Wellness. It's for everybody. It goes through all phases of aging, nutrition, exercise, end of life issues, things like that. I have a copy for everyone if you want one. And that's about all I have. I hope this was helpful. Any questions? Yeah, questions?
What's the difference between a donor advised fund and a charitable remainder trust?
Okay.
It seemed like they kind of can function similarly.
All right.
Maybe
The charitable remainder trust pays income to you during your lifetime or your family beyond your lifetime.
Okay.
So it takes appreciated assets, sells them, and then you get an income stream. And the money out of it comes to you.
But you want to use that to give to like a charitable organization?
Yeah, and at the end of the term of the trust, when it's
Okay.
all said and done, it could be your lifetime and it can go 20 years beyond your lifetime if you want. But at the end of that time, then it goes to the charity that you're named in the trust. And you can name multiple charities. The donor advised fund kind of is the opposite. You get a tax deduction for giving the money now, but then you also every year get to give to charities out of it. It's like at a bank. You have it at a bank.
Yeah.
It's just an account at a bank that is only used for the giving that you want to do to charities.
Makes sense.
Hey, good question.
Yeah, and then on one more question.
Yep.
For endowments, if a church doesn't have like a big gift or a lot of extra savings to start an endowment, can you
Right.
still start an endowment fund, like open an endowment fund? How much money do you need to do that, or do you like that way you're ready to receive it?
Yeah, right.
'Cause that's kind of one of my questions for Beautiful Savior.
Realistically, it's gonna happen through a state gift. A
Yeah.
six-figure estate gift is gonna be what's gonna kick it off.
So you get a gift first and then kick it off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to set up can I tell a quick story?
Yep.
I don't know, did I tell you the Sioux Falls story?
Yeah.
I did, okay.
Yeah.
I was in South Dakota, a gentleman left a $500,000 state gift to his LCEF church. He and his wife tragically died in a plane crash. He was piloting a snowstorm Thanksgiving weekend. And almost, I think, as much to the school too. And the LCEF, or Lutheran, I can't remember who the guy was, which one he was with.
Probably Foundation.
Probably Foundation, told his story. He attended the congregational meeting about how to spend this guy's $500,000. He said there's people now who don't talk to each other anymore because of that. And what happened, what should have happened is the church should have had a proactive estate gift policy. Basically say, if you don't specify what you want to do, we're gonna put it in doubt by default. No fighting, no arguing. And that's really the smart thing to do.
So we just need a policy that says.
Yeah, if someone leaves $2,000 for choir robes, no big deal. They
Right.
leave $250,000,
Right.
we need to have policies that, extreme case, but you gotta get ahead of it. You can't leave something like that to a congregational meeting when it happens. You gotta have, and the smart thing, I worked at Salvation Army for 14 years. We had a pie graph with 8 different slices about how we spend every unrestricted estate gift, which is most estate gifts. But my suggestion for a small church like this is just put it in endowment. And it's only 4% interest every year. Don't steal your thunder. He did, it was a powerful thing. We had our endowment committee, we were trying to get our endowment started. And he said to the pastor, I think I told you this story. He said to the pastor, how many funerals did you do for church members last year? And the pastor's like, 8. He said, how much money did you bury in the ground? The pastor's like, what? A young guy, like 30, what? And the treasurer saw what he was talking about, and the treasurer said, well, who were they? And I wrote down, well, it was about $17,000 in annual donations went into those graves. And he said, Pastor, did you replace those 8 people's giving with new members giving at that level? No. Are your old members upping their giving by $17,000? No. And how many years has this been going on? It doesn't take a rocket science to see why so many churches are going out of business, because their donors, their biggest donors are dying, and their monies are not being replaced. And I'll talk about this when Nick is set up in the IRA presentation, but he said, what if those people had given 25 times their annual gift through their estate? So they gave $5,000 a year, and they gave, let's say $4,000 a year, just keep my math easy. They gave $4,000 a year, and they gave $100,000, 4 times 25, they gave $100,000 through their will, and it went in the endowment. Endowments pay out how much?
4%.
4%. It'd be like they're still sitting in the pew in perpetuity. So that's what endowments can do. That's the power of endowments.
And it can be a small amount to start with.
Generally, what does 50 is your minimum? Maybe?
I think the LCMS Foundation still has $25,000 for a named endowment.
Most charities are 50.
50.
But it's
Yeah.
us. Hold this for 50. But they'll still take it and just hold. It can be held. Let's say it was a $2,000 estate gift. We could still hold it until other gifts came in
And build it up.
to build it up to get it launched.
Other questions?
So I guess the question is a statement. When my husband first died and stuff, there was things I went to a lawyer with about questions and stuff. And I said, oh, I didn't know what to do for my kids and whatnot. They said, worry about yourself. You save your money, you don't know how long you're gonna live yet. Well, it's been 4+ years now, and you don't know when your person goes. So you have to, and like retirement places and assisted living are skyrocket high if a person can't afford them,
Right. Yeah.
So he said, just hang on to your money. You might, for yourself, you may need it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that's why the thing is when to give it, how much to give,
Yeah.
and take care of yourself first. Make sure that you have enough. And then if there is something left, your will says, okay, if there's something left, give it to the church or give it to whatever. But you can put those.
Beneficiary.
Yeah.
None of this, well, some of this we talked about, but none of what we talked about is happening while you're alive. It's a provision deal.
Yeah. Hang on to your money.
Yeah. That's right, so that the tax man is, doesn't want you to hang on.
That's right. Yeah.
And you turn, loose and stuff like Jesus said, you're single now, we're in that tax bracket way up here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it still wouldn't preclude you to name, your church as a partial recipient of whatever's left when you do die. That kind of thing. Because you don't have to give it away now. And it can always be changed.
Well, we'll give, oh, do you have a?
Yeah, what's the rule, what's the difference between, an IRA and a Roth IRA? Do they have different functions or not? Or is this the wrong place to ask?
No, good question. A traditional IRA is money that when you put it in, you get you exclude that from your income. So, and you don't pay tax on it until you take it out. A Roth IRA, you put money into it, it's not included in your income.
You've already paid tax.
You already pay tax on it. And when it comes out tax-free. So Roth IRA money has already been taxed. IRA money has not been taxed yet.
Your tax on it, because you have to take out your distribution in at 70 and a half years old.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, now it's
they
73.
decide how much.
Right.
Government does.
So I'll fall under that rule when I turn 73, I have to start hitting that account?
Yeah.
Because even though it's a Roth, it doesn't matter?
Oh, that I don't know for sure. Roth IRAs, do they need to be distributed?
Still take a distribution.
Okay,
Don't quote us.
yeah. Right.
We don't have to mess with Roths too much because most people aren't talking to us about Roths because
Well, I'm
they've
not.
already paid tax on it.
Yeah.
But the
Roth
big
is a
money's in
great-
traditional IRAs because Roths, you can only put a few thousand in a year. It's not,
Right.
it's not like a 401k. So what is it?
And a lot of people are doing the Roth IRA, the Roth transfers. Talk to your tax advisor, you know, maximize that 12% tax bracket as much as you can. And if you're under it, put money from your IRA into your Roth.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
We are all Friday.
So,
All right.
Friday.
Well, thank you, Al.